Don McGahn to fire Mueller. If I wanted to fire Mueller, I would have done it myself. It's very simple. I had the right to. And by the way, and Mueller finished out his report. No collusion and no obstruction.
That was President Trump on the lawn of the White House today, again denying he tried to influence the special counsel's investigation or tried to fire Robert Mueller. But the Mueller report doesn't align with the president's version of events. Instead, testimony provided by Trump's former White House counsel, Don McGahn, details multiple incidents in which the president demanded Mueller go. He was ultimately thwarted by his own aides, McGahn chief among them. Today, the Washington Post dives into what happened next, reporting that a frustrated president went for help to a former campaign operative, hoping to use him as a back channel to influence the investigation. Quote, Trump turned to the one person he could long count on to do his bidding, Corey Lewandowski, his former campaign manager, described by senior White House advisors to investigators as a Trump devotee. Joining me, Washington Post national security reporter and author of the Post's new book, The Mueller Report, Matt Zapotosky, and former U.S. attorney in Michigan and MSNBC contributor Barbara McQuade. All right, Matt, I'm going to read a little bit of what you wrote. Lewandowski had repeatedly proved his loyalty to Trump. He had signed on with the campaign when the New York mogul's candidacy was widely dismissed as a joke. He followed the mantra of let Trump be Trump and offered fiery defenses of his boss. When he was fired from the campaign, he appeared on television that day to praise Trump. So I wonder, in this context, Matt, did Trump look at him and think, well, he's absolutely going to get this done for me?
Yeah, this is a guy who is as loyal can get in the Trump world. And he's a guy who, at the time Trump asks him to deliver this message to Sessions, who isn't even in government. And that's so critical here, right? Because Mueller sees this as Trump turning to someone who's just going to be loyal to him, who actually isn't sort of in the chain of command, but is outside of it. And that in some ways makes it even more nefarious. Trump is turning to an outsider. He's not taking an official act that people can judge and maybe has a good motive. He's turning to an outsider for this kind of back channel plan to get a message to Sessions to limit the scope of Mueller's investigation. And it's important to note Corey Lewandowski, who you just described as maybe the most loyal of all of the people in Trump world, even he is sort of uncomfortable with this plan and doesn't ultimately carry it out in the way Trump wants. But that does seem to be why Trump turns to him. At least that's why Mueller believed that Trump turns to him.
Barbara, let me read that exact passage that Matt was just referencing. This is from the Mueller report. Substantial evidence indicates that the president's efforts to have Jeff Sessions limit the scope of the special counsel's investigation to future election interference was intended to prevent further investigative scrutiny of the president's and his campaign's conduct. The timing and circumstances of the president's actions support the conclusion that he sought that result. So a lot of people read that and say, is that not obstruction?
It absolutely is obstruction. I think one thing that's being overlooked about Robert Mueller's report is with about 8 of these 11 episodes that he chronicles, he finds that the elements of obstruction are satisfied. What he doesn't do is decide that it's his place to recommend charges because a sitting president cannot be indicted. I think that William Barr's letter suggests that Robert Mueller thought, I've got some evidence on one side and some on the other, and I just can't decide. That is not what I read his report to be saying. I read his report to be saying all of the elements of obstruction are met with regard to some of these episodes, including this one that Matt has written about. But what he says is it is not for us to decide because a sitting president cannot be charged. And even if we were to recommend charges, it would be unfair to the president because he can't even go to court to clear his name. So what we're doing instead is preserving that evidence for Congress or future prosecutors to decide what to do with it.
Well, again, let me read from your article, Matt. The episode, which discomfited even some of Trump's most loyal advisors, was read by some legal advisors as one of the clearest cases laid out in Mueller's report of potential obstruction of justice by the president. But senior Justice Department officials took a more skeptical view, which informed Attorney General William P. Barr's later conclusion that Trump could not be charged with obstructing justice, according to people familiar with that thinking. What do you think about that description, how it all went down, Barbara?
Well, I think it goes back to that 19-page memo that William Barr wrote last summer before he became Attorney General. He has a legal theory that Robert Mueller rejected. But William Barr's legal theory is that a president cannot obstruct justice as a matter of law when he is merely exercising some power he has as the chief executive under the Constitution. So doing things like firing an FBI director or issuing orders about what should happen in an investigation cannot, as a matter of law, constitute obstruction of justice. And that high-level officials at the Department of Justice agreed with him on that theory. Robert Mueller rejects that theory and says that the president has a duty to exercise power, certainly, but he cannot do so corruptly. He must take care that the law be faithfully executed, not just that it be executed. And so I think this comes down to a legal differences of opinion and not a factual one. I think factually there's evidence of obstruction here, and that is a matter of difference of legal opinion, which I think Robert Mueller concludes is not a valid defense for the president.